The story begins in a time when Israel had no king. Everyone did what was right in their own eyes. It was an age of chaos, famine, and spiritual decline. In the small town of Bethlehem, yes, the same Bethlehem where Jesus would be born centuries later, lived a man named Elimelech, his wife Naomi, and their two sons, Mahlon and Chilion. When famine struck the land, Elimelech made a decision to leave Bethlehem, the house of bread, and travel east to Moab, a pagan nation hostile to Israel. He hoped for a better life, a chance to survive. But sometimes, in escaping hunger, we walk straight into heartbreak. In Moab, tragedy struck. Elimelech died. Naomi was left a widow in a foreign land with her two sons. Her sons married Moabite women, one named Orpah and the other Ruth. For 10 years they lived there, until both sons died too. And now, Naomi stood alone. No husband, no sons, no hope. 3 widows, left in a world where widows had no protection, no rights, no future. This is where the story begins. In loss, in emptiness, in silence. One day, Naomi heard that the famine had ended, that God had once again blessed Bethlehem with bread. So she decided to go home. But home no longer felt like home. She was broken, bitter, and old. Her name, Naomi, meant pleasant. But she would later say, "Don't call me Naomi, call me Mara, for the Almighty has made my life bitter." She turned to her daughters-in-law and said, "Go back to your mothers. You're still young. Find new husbands. Start new lives. May the Lord bless you." They wept together on that dusty road between Moab and Bethlehem, 3 women bound by grief. Orpah kissed Naomi goodbye and returned to Moab. But Ruth didn't move. Naomi insisted again. "Go back, my daughter. There's nothing for you with me. Even if I could have another son tonight, would you wait for him to grow?" But Ruth looked at her with eyes full of something Naomi hadn't seen in years. Faith. And she said words that have echoed through centuries. "Do not urge me to leave you or turn back from following you. Where you go, I will go. Where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if anything but death separates you and me." That was it. No more persuasion, no more talk. Ruth had chosen, not just Naomi, but God himself. A Moabite woman, once outside the covenant, now stepping into the story of redemption. The 2 women began the long journey back to Bethlehem. It was spring, the beginning of the barley harvest. But while the land was fruitful, Naomi's heart was barren. When she arrived, the city stirred. "Is this Naomi?" the women whispered. But Naomi said, "Don't call me Naomi, call me Mara. The Lord has brought me back empty." Empty, but not alone. Ruth stood beside her, silent, strong, faithful. They had nothing, no husband, no money, no food. But Ruth, determined to provide, went out to the fields to glean. In ancient Israel, poor people could gather leftover grain after the harvesters, a sign of God's mercy written into the law of Moses. And so, Ruth, a foreign woman, walked out into the hot fields, bending under the sun, gathering grain from the edges. She didn't know where she was, but the Bible says As it turned out, she found herself in the field belonging to Boaz. As it turned out, coincidence? No, providence. Boaz was a wealthy man, a relative of Naomi's late husband, and a man of integrity. When he saw Ruth gleaning, he asked, whose young woman is that? The foreman replied, She's the Moabite who came back with Naomi. Boaz watched her, saw her humility, her diligence, her quiet courage. He walked up to her and said, Listen, my daughter, don't go and glean in another field. Stay here. I've told the men not to touch you. When you're thirsty, drink from the water jars the men have filled. Ruth bowed low to the ground and said, Why have I found such favor, since I am a foreigner? Boaz replied, I've heard what you did for Naomi, how you left your homeland and came to a people you didn't know. May the Lord reward you fully for what you've done. May you find refuge under his wings. That day, Ruth went home with an abundance of grain, far more than she expected. When Naomi saw it, her eyes widened. Where did you work today? Blessed be the man who took notice of you. Ruth answered, The man's name is Boaz. And Naomi smiled, perhaps for the first time in years. This man is our close relative. He is one of our kinsman redeemers. A spark of hope, small but real, flickered in Naomi's soul. Weeks passed. The harvest neared its end. One evening, Naomi turned to Ruth and said, My daughter, shall I not seek rest for you, that it may be well with you? Boaz is a good man. Tonight he will be winnowing barley at the threshing floor. Naomi's plan was bold, but full of faith. She told Ruth to wash, anoint herself, and dress in her best clothes. When he lies down to sleep, Naomi said, Go, uncover his feet, and lie down. He will tell you what to do. This wasn't seduction. It was a cultural gesture of humility and appeal. By uncovering his feet, Ruth was symbolically saying, I seek your protection as a redeemer. That night, Boaz finished his meal and lay down beside the grain. At midnight he stirred and found a woman at his feet. Who are you? He asked. Ruth answered softly, I am Ruth, your servant. Spread your covering over me, for you are a kinsman redeemer. And in that moment, Boaz realized what was happening. This was no ordinary woman. This was a woman of faith, courage, and honor. He said, May the Lord bless you, my daughter. You have shown more kindness now than before, because you did not go after younger men. And now, do not fear. I will do for you all that you ask. But there was a problem. Boaz wasn't the closest relative. There was another man with a prior claim. Boaz promised, If he redeems you, good. But if he will not, I swear by the Lord, I will redeem you myself. The next morning, Boaz went straight to the town gate, where business and justice were done. He found the other kinsmen and gathered 10 elders as witnesses. He said, Naomi is selling the land that belonged to our brother Elimelech. Will you redeem it? The man replied, I will. Boaz then added, On the day you buy it, you also acquire Ruth the Moabite, to maintain the family name of the dead. The man hesitated. He realized that marrying Ruth could complicate his inheritance, and so he said, Then I cannot redeem it. You redeem it for yourself. Boaz smiled and declared before the elders, You are witnesses this day that I have bought all that belonged to Elimelech, and also Ruth the Moabite I have taken as my wife. The people and elders blessed them, saying, May the Lord make this woman like Rachel and Leah, who built the house of Israel. Boaz, the Redeemer, married Ruth, and in their union the story of redemption was fulfilled. Naomi, once bitter and broken, now held a baby in her arms, Ruth and Boaz's son. The women of Bethlehem rejoiced and said, Praise be to the Lord, who has not left you without a redeemer today. May this child restore your life and sustain you in your old age. They named the boy Obed. He grew up to be the father of Jesse, who became the father of David, the shepherd king. From a foreign widow in Moab came the bloodline of the Messiah. Ruth's story isn't just about romance or luck. It's about redemption. She left everything familiar, her home, her gods, her security, to follow Naomi's God. She found favor not because of her status, but because of her faithfulness. Naomi thought she was empty, but God was quietly writing a bigger story, one that reached beyond her lifetime. Through Ruth, God showed us that no one is too far to be redeemed, that loyal love can rewrite a legacy, and that faith in the dark can lead to eternal light. The same God who wove redemption into Ruth's story is still weaving it into yours. You may not see the full picture yet, but He's not finished. Sometimes redemption begins in loss. Sometimes love is found in loyalty. And sometimes the road that begins in famine ends in Bethlehem. When you read Ruth's name in the lineage of Christ in Matthew chapter 1, remember, she was a foreigner, a widow, an outsider, and yet God chose her to be part of the line that brought salvation to the world. So if you ever feel unseen, forgotten, or unworthy, remember Ruth. God specializes in turning outsiders into vessels of His grace. He is your Redeemer too.